Hello everybody and welcome back to artofdino.com, where I have got a little bit more from the collection of the Library of Congress. And I've been scouring this for a while now, so I have got a pretty good collection which I want to share some of the gems with you all in some coming up videos. So stay tuned for more and more, and I apologize in advance for some of them not knowing the dates. I can assure you they're between 1770 and 1930. I don't think anything goes above that, but I don't know the exact ones. Some of them I do, but some of them I don't. And I'll guess from the best of my ability and memory. Most of them were early in searches, so they were in the early 1800s or mid 1800s for, I don't know, you'll see. But here we go. Let's dive right in because these are excellent. And I've got a pretty varied collection in this group, so stay tuned. The Tartar ones are towards the end, and there's some kind of small ones in the middle with some ancient stuff at the beginning. So here we go. First one. Ancient Aboriginal Americans. Man lived on this continent earlier than, or at least as early as he lived on the European continent, but it is not believed that the Indians are descended from such early people. The latest theory seems to be that the so-called American Indians are descended from Chinese, Tartarians, who in some way reached the western coast thousands of years ago. The parallelisms between the customs of the Chinese and the ancient Peruvians are often very striking. The systems of government of the two people were similar. The emperor and the Inca both claimed descent from heaven. Both countries had irrigated canals, and in both countries taxes were paid in kind and stored in public warehouses. Both countries maintained public roads, disposed of their dead with the same ceremonies, and built houses in much the same style. Humboldt found in the Mexican calendar strong resemblances to the ancient calendar used in Tartary, India, and Tibet. The skull of the American, except in its greater length, greatly resembles that of the Chinese. So that's very interesting, and this one was from the early 1800s, but wow. This connection is definitely something we all must dive a little deeper into and see how we can connect those civilizations. We know that the boats and navigation must have been easy for these ancient civilizations, although they seem to make it seem impossible. There's absolutely no way it was. Boats were just conquering everything, and so we have to really explore this Peruvian connection a lot more. And I bet a lot of answers are in the art and structure and so much more that's been lost. So let's keep it going. Another ancient story about glass mirrors of the ancients. M. Berthelot has from time to time unearthed a vast amount of valuable information respecting the chemistry and technology of the ancients. I might have to check into him as well. His latest researches have references to some glass mirrors found near Rheims, in which date from the 3rd and 4th centuries. The glass was coated with a metallic substance and also with a layer of whitish material. Is that similar to the pyramids, I wonder? The metal proved to be lead, with no trace of gold, silver, copper, tin, antimony, or mercury, nor was there any organic substance present, showing that no extraneous material was used to cement the lead to the glass. The mirrors appeared to have been cut from hollow-blown glass globes, and it is possible that before being cut, the molten lead had been poured into the interior, adhering to the previously warmed glass. The whitish layer consisted of lead carbonate and lead oxide formed by the oxidation of the lead coating and calcium carbonate, which had been deposited from the water of the district in which the mirrors were found. The industry in iron. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm always curious about the glass and different technology, because they might have had all these different things and used things that we just find in nature or along beaches or whatever that were once actually structures, and now they're just ingredients for these ancient structures that are just strewn everywhere, and we just consider them dirt and whatever. So I have a feeling there's a lot more to that as well. This one is ridiculous. Cosmogeny, and this was from an 1800s paper, but relating to people from ancient times. It says, Xenophanes took the stars to be patches of clouds lighted up at night and extinguished in the morning. I love hearing just what ancient people thought of everything. Anaxagoras considered the firmament to be an arch of stone, the sun, immense inflammable body, and the stars to be stones whirled up from the surface of the earth by circumambulent air and so ignited. Interesting. Diogenes declared the stars to be hot pumice stones fixed in the sphere of the heavens, serving as lamps in the night, but chiefly designed as ventilators of the world. I like that. Others maintained that the sun was globular, hollow, and containing fire, that the light streamed through a cavity on one side, and when this was stopped, the sun was eclipsed. And I've thought of that too. I've thought of all of these at different things. When you actually sit back and look at nature and stare at it and meditate on it and think about completely outside the box of what we've been taught, because we know that's where the answers are. And the last paragraph says, Aristotle thought the universe to have eternally existed in its present state. Leucippus' origin dated the Epicurean plan or something that the universe was created by atoms. Democritus laid down that these first magnitude were eternal and that they had possessed a uniform motion and celerity. Epicurus completed the structure by the theory that the world sprung from a collision of these atoms. Descartes' world was formed by vortices. Burnet, Whiston, Leibniz, Kepler, Cuvier, and a multitude of others have been popular for their several theories. In our own country, may claim a high share of distinction for the novel and ingenious discoveries of John Cleves Sims and Ira Hill. So I'm going to have to look into those guys at the end, but I think they kind of lost it a little bit as time went on, and the information became a little bit corrupted and controlled, and so the ancients always give a little bit more insight to what may be a little bit closer, but then again, who knows? We all are, I guess, in the same boat of theoretical marvel at what we can't fathom. But hopefully we will, because we have to figure out the truth. Here we go. Keep going. And this one I figured I'd just toss in there because I found it pretty interesting, from 1917, where it says, Jerusalem, the holy city, taken by the British. Especially gratifying to Christians and Jews alike outside the Central Powers was the news that Jerusalem had been captured by the British forces commanded by General Allenby. In the foreground of the photograph is one of the holy pools, the Mosque of Omar, or the Dome of the Rock, on Mount Moriah, where the old temple altar stood and where the sacrifices were made to God in biblical days, can be seen in the center of the photograph. The view shown is from the southern end of the old wall, and it's just interesting to see all that, how the news at this time would handle a story like this. And you don't hear anything about the innocent people or lives that were probably lost in that city being taken by the British, whereas nowadays the story is a little bit different, and you can see both sides of the conflict, which is very interesting, I thought. So I'd include that there. I'm not going to really talk about it. I don't really know too much about it, so I'm going to just leave it to be interesting and keep going on. Here we go. And I love music, so I love hearing about thoughts of music, especially from the early 1800s. So I thought this was really cool as well, because music has been an interesting thing this year. It's coming back to my world in ways I've never fathomed possible. It's like art's not out, but its music is definitely coming back with a vengeance. So here we go. Music in man. The universal disposition of human beings from the cradle to the deathbed to express their feeling in measured cadences of sound and action proves that our bodies are constructed on musical principles, and that the harmonious working of their machinery depends on the movements of the several parts being timed to each other, and that the destruction of health, as regards both body and mind, may be well described as being out of tune. Our intellectual and moral vigor would be better sustained if we more practically studied the propriety of keeping the soul in harmony by regulating the movements of the body, for we should thus see and feel that every affection which is not connected with social enjoyment is also destructive of individual comforts, and that whatever tends to harmonize also tends to promote happiness and health. And that is beautiful, and that really should be studied a lot more, the power of music and the essentialness of music. Sadly, I think it's been studied as a weapon more than anything, hence the guaranteed psyop of Taylor Swift and pretty much the entire musical industry nowadays, which just hijacks the spirit with nonsensical frequencies and disgusting mantras. So this is very important, and I know you all know the importance of music, so get back into it. I just got a record player the other day and a drum set in my basement, electronic drum set. I've just been obsessed. I love music, and it really does help health and mental health and everything. This one I thought was pretty cool. A Mexican beer, mushroom beer. Ancient Mexicans used to indulge in an intoxicating brew called Tiahuanacoatl during certain festivals. The drink was made from a special kind of mushroom, most definitely magic, and that sounds delicious. I would love to have a magic ancient Mexican beer, mushroom beer. Wow. Sounds so good. I just had to include it. It was one of those little tiny blurbs from one of these newspapers that was going around back in the 1800s. So imagine whatever that would be like. Here we go. Keep going. Here's another quick one I thought was interesting. It says, with the first day's advent of streetcars on Broadway, New York, the 300 stages which required the services of 1,400 horses were withdrawn. In the past week, horses, harness, stages, and stables have been sold at auction. No revolution in transportation was ever more complete and sudden. So it makes me wonder, just a small little bit, makes me wonder what other revolutions in transportation are they referring to, and again, more sudden and complete, which is just like the EV kind of advent and supposed revolution that they tried to push, except the car one actually worked. This EV one is definitely not working, but I found it very interesting just, how they push it. Even back then, they were just like, boom, no, this is done. Next round coming in, and these were live animals and things that were, would be waste, and so that's kind of intense. I thought just kind of conjured up a lot of different ideas and interesting thoughts. So these next ones are celestial events, and these ones are pretty cool. So check this. On Sunday evening, May 9th, 1814, we were entertained by an exhibition of the aurora borealis, or northern lights, of the most brilliant character. It was a clear evening. The streams of light arose to a considerable height in the firmament, and assumed all the variety this singular phenomenon is remarkable for. And all these, I was looking up firmament, and so many early 1700s and 1800s things talk about the firmament. It's just absolute common knowledge. So it arose to considerable height in the firmament, and assumed all the variety of this singular phenomenon is remarkable for. Purple, white, yellow, and reddish veins of light flashed above the horizon in columns of the most fantastic workmanship, converged, extended, dissolved, and were succeeded by others equally rich and vivid. Between 8 and 9 o'clock, a broad iris appeared in the center of the firmament, and extended east and west to the horizon, of a rich yellow cast, and so bright that shades were formed by objects on the earth. It continued for about half an hour and disappeared. Half an hour! That sounds ridiculous. From horizon to horizon, I'm always very curious of the celestial phenomena of the past. And were ancient civilizations involved in other people beyond the poles sending signs and doing more things that later get controlled by military? Who knows? But this one's also interesting. A letter received in the city dated Sassafras, Maryland, June 8th, states that on the evening of the 7th we had one of the most tremendous hailstorms ever known in this part. It broke all the window glass, destroyed the fruit and garden plants, and injured the crops materially. Its continuance was about 5 minutes. The firmament was one continued blaze of light. The noise which the hail made on its descent was equal to the loudest thunder. And I thought that was also very interesting, because just the weather phenomenon back in the day when there was natural weather, possibly, most likely, as opposed to now, they must have experienced some ridiculous things. And, and maybe they did have weather weapons. Maybe that was another ancient tech, and I'm kind of sure it was. And did it get passed on? And again, beyond the poles, were they utilizing it on us? Or who knows? The controllers, I'm at a loss. Either way, this one is also very cool. The meaning of the word Lama. And this one is from September 25th, 1853. So, according to the Mongols and other Asiatic Tartars, is mother or pastor of souls, the meaning of the word Lama. It also means, as defined by Webster, a South American beast of burden nearly allied to the camel. According to the Lama, that's kind of funny. According to the Rev. Charles Merivale, among the Mongols, Lama is a title given to priests in general. Among the Kalmuks, to the highest classes of priests only, the Dalai Lama or Great Lama is honored as the representative of divinity, or rather as a real divinity dwelling on the earth, by various tribes of Tartaric descent. This personage resides at Lhasa in Tibet, and pilgrimages are made to his residence by the inhabitants of many distant regions of Tartary. The Grand Lama is chiefly dependent, in a political sense, on the Chinese Empire. When the actual Dalai Lama dies, his spirit is supposed to seek another body in which to be born again, and the new Lama can only be discovered by a certain favored class among the priests. The worshippers of the Grand Lama also pay particular reverence to two other subordinate lamas, Teishu and Taranant Lama. The worshippers are divided into sects, distinguished by the title of Yellow Caps and Red Caps. Another sect in Tartary are under three other lamas, styled the three Shamonars. And it just always makes me wonder, whenever they connect Tartary to Tibet, in such a way as, Lhasa being like the capital, the ancient capital, and still the modern capital, it just makes me wonder what was there. Because a civilization that's existed in that spot that long, for thousands of years, and it doesn't have a massive population that's like, so many times it had to have been getting crushed and taken down from its original splendor. And that's exactly what this last article, sadly, kind of leads to, and it is just unfortunate. And this article is from 1914, where it says, Mongol race declines fast, says report. Only 700,000 left of people who once conquered the whole of Asia. And keep in mind, again, this is, what comes to the American people from overseas after being processed and, strategized of every single context. But I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but I'll read the second paragraph. Start from the second paragraph, where it says, the last limits and boundaries of this race, which seems centuries ago conquered nearly the whole of Asia and part of Europe, have begun to disappear, says Mr. Rockhill. In the crucible formed by Japan and China on the one side and Russia on the other, the naive, gullible descendants of the Mongol conquerors are no match for the canny Chinese trader from the south and the imperially escorted Russian manufacturer from the north, who have undermined and transformed all of this country's relations and conditions. And I'm sure they were guided by the hands of the British and the wealth of the British. And I wonder where this all comes to. It's like they tag teamed, like all these forces, like just completely ganged up on the Tartars, and we're all in on it. Like they're all in on Antarctica, like they're all in on the land behind the poles and controlling it. They were all in on the eradication of these people, this entire race. The next paragraph is titled, Dull People. 700,000 rather dull people is the existing remnant of the Mongol Empire, who once controlled the world. Now they're dull. He says, the burial Mongols, believed to be of the same tribe as Genghis Khan, that great conqueror who left his sons in 1227, an empire which stretched from the China Sea to the Dnieper, are under Russian domain in southern Siberia, the birthplace of Genghis Khan. But this land of the Tartar nation that was his is that included in the Outer Mongolia, which declared independence from China during the Revolutionary Rebellion in China in 1912. It is known as the land of the Khalkhas. The newly created state defines the spot where all that remains of ancient Tartary is to survive or perish, says Mr. Rockhill. Here is all that is left of perhaps the most wonderful empire of time that was erected on horseback by Genghis Khan. Other Mongolia's aspiration to stand alone is altogether dependent on the adjoining powers. So just think about that. How can you possibly even say those same words together? We're all that is left of perhaps the most wonderful empire of time that was erected on horseback by Genghis Khan. So the wonderful empire of all time was just made with horseback and horsepower, and I find that to be in itself just kind of a propaganda line, knowing what I believe we know, because you just can't. There's something missing with their propaganda of always wanting to make them seem nomadic and pathetic and technologically useless, and what the reality I believe definitely is, which is most definitely the opposite. And I'm sure there was a lot of people that were in the tribes, and they probably protected those people because they were targeted by all these other monsters surrounding them that inevitably just closed in on them, That's what these people do. We see it in all of our time as well, in our past wars, where they bully a nation that's not getting along or not doing what the collective is doing, and they just surround them and they bully them into submission. And it's a shame that it happened to the Tartars, because it seems like they were amazing, and I'd like to experience what was around during that wonderful era of time, and which seems like it must have been incredible, with hundreds of thousands of elaborate buildings all over the world, everything amazing, people probably getting along, people having all these different systems that we have today, but in their like purest form. And I always will wonder what it's like. But either way, we'll continue to scan these articles and see what other gems we can find. Hope you all enjoy this. Stay tuned for more and share it with others. And also, go check out artofdino.com. Bless you all.